border, and at that point, that's when Ramos stood up and challenged Trump about his immigration plan. Here's how it all went down. Take a look.
Okay, who's next? Yeah, please. Excuse me, sit down. You weren't called. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Go ahead. No, you don't. You haven't been called. Go back to Univision.
And then about 10 seconds after that, a security guard walked over and escorted Ramos out. He was eventually allowed back in and pressed Trump about his claims that he'll win the Hispanic vote. Both ended up phoning into different morning shows earlier today and continued the finger pointing.
I've been a journalist for more than 30 years. I've been all over the world, and I've never been thrown out of any press conference from any interview. This is not Cuba or Venezuela.
He was totally out of line last night. I was asking and being asked a question from another reporter. I would have gotten to him very quickly, and he stood up and started ranting and raving like a madman.
Now, Connell, the two have a history here. Earlier this summer, Ramos wrote Trump a letter asking for an interview. That letter included Ramos's phone number, and Trump ended up posting that to Instagram. Trump, of course, as we know, also has a pending lawsuit against Univision for ending their Miss Universe agreement. Connell?
Which he also pointed out at the news conference. Fun times,
yeah,
Blake. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I want to go to Gina Loudon on this. And the idea, we talked about this a little bit last hour with Charlie Gasparino. And whatever Donald Trump says in the campaign, if this were any other candidate, Gina, it would be taken differently. But if anything, his poll numbers keep going up, whether who he's attacking with, who he's feuding with. What do you make of that?
I don't think that it would be taken differently. I just think that our politicians have been brainwashed by the pundits who control them for so long to believe that just saying the truth isn't acceptable. And I think Donald Trump has redefined that whole manner of politicking. And I think that's what is really a breath of fresh air to the American people.
Well, the polls do find that. They find that if you're supporting Trump, if somebody likes Trump, they usually like the way he speaks. Sometimes it's not even what he's saying. It's the way, the way he carries himself. They look at him here in the news conference, just the straightforward manner. Sometimes they like a policy like immigration or whatever it may be, but usually it's the other way around. Now, the knock against Trump throughout this whole thing, you know this, and I think you're a fan of his, so it'd be interesting to see what you think. The knock against him has been there's a ceiling, that he can't go past 15%. Then when he went to 20, and now he keeps going up in the polls. So is that ceiling really there?
I don't know. I think the one fun thing about Trump, for those of us who've watched politics and done the analysis forever, and maybe even the reason I'm a fan of his is not necessarily because I think he makes the best president, but because I love what he's done to the game of politics. He has pulled the rug out from the GOP and media elite who thought that they got to pick our next GOP nominee. And in fact, it doesn't look like they're going to have that say the way they thought so. And that is thanks in large part to the truths that Trump is speaking. I think even if you look at the tragic events of today in Virginia, some of this, it has to do with the race inciting that has been going on for years in this country, funded by George Soros. Who do you think is going to call that out? I'm just waiting. You just know Trump's going to call that out.
Well, the Virginia story, as far as we know, and Ashley was just talking about this, is really centered on these people and the workplace situation that they had. We think, at this point, somebody had worked at the station, and be that as it may, but would you be willing to vote for someone, and obviously I'm talking about Trump when I ask you this, who you don't agree with on a number of issues, and maybe you do on every issue, but say you don't, you're willing to vote for someone just because of their tone and you like the way they sound?
You make a great point here. I think that the American people are ready to vote for someone, even if they don't agree with them straight down the line, who they feel like they can trust, because he's been willing to disagree with people dangerously. And I think America kind of wants that back. I also think it's his "we can do it" attitude that has changed so much. We're tired of politicians saying, oh yeah, we really need to eliminate the debt, but we're not sure how. We need to secure the border, but you can't really do that. He's saying, yeah, we can. And even if he doesn't have every single detail of that in place, I think people are willing to give him a little grace on that and see what he can do.
Thanks very much. Good to see you, Gina Loudon, with us on Donald Trump's story that keeps on being a story. Still ahead, more than 80% of healthcare organizations. 80%.